Reminder of what a decent, mild 440 sounds like. Versus, you know, a Gen 3 Hemi. They don't necessarily sound bad, but is it the right fit? Hello and welcome to the shop. I'm Jared and this is the Questionable Garage, and behind me is my 1970 Plymouth Sport Satellite, my ultimate dream car, muscle car. It's just, again, I say it every episode, it's the best looking of all the muscle cars. You guys have your opinions. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong, but you're not right. This thing is the ultimate. And in the last episode, we went ahead and got the floor cut out to prepare for a new tool to get here. Well, the new tool's not here, but we still made a little bit of progress off camera. And as you could surmise from the title of the episode, we're getting ready to work on the power plant. But if you do notice, the new floor pan is in, but it's not actually in. I just have it set in there. I've got the remnants of the old one to mark some holes to get cut in, so we know that they are perfect. And as always with an AMD sheet metal piece, it dropped right in. But that is not what we're focused on today. Today, we are gonna take apart that donor engine. Now, some of you may have caught my used engine buying advice, where I was giving some tips and tricks on how to buy an engine, where we learned something a little bit unfortunate about our engine. We'll go over that here in just 1 second. But before we get into that, let's go for a ride in an air-conditioned truck where I can tell you about today's sponsor. Just kidding, I had to jump in something just a little bit sportier than a pickup truck. That's the F-Sport Lexus. And just like today's sponsor, the Redtiger F17 Elite, it's slim, compact, and sporty. Now, the F17 Elite is something, well, elite. It is the world's first night vision full color camera with interior shot. Look how good it looks at night. It boasts a 4K front camera, a 1080p interior camera with full color night vision, and a 2.5K rear camera. Now, those front cameras feature a Sony Starvis 2 sensor, meaning you get the ultimate in quality. You get a dual band HDR, making sure you get all the colors, no overexposure or underexposure. Just how good is that 4K front camera? Well, let's say someone cuts you off, hits your front bumper, and keeps on going. You're gonna get their license plate, no problem. You have the evidence to make sure you're taken care of, whether that be an accident or amazing scenic mountain roads. With an easy to control touchscreen with quick function button underneath, and with Wi-Fi 6 5.8 gigahertz connectivity, you're gonna get those files downloaded on your phone fast with their seamless app. So if you're looking to add a slim, feature-packed dash camera to your vehicle, go with the brand that I love and editor Dwayne has trusted for many years, and that's Redtiger. You can get your Redtiger F17 Elite. Special offer for the questionable viewers, link in the description and pinned comment down below. Jump on, get you one. Use the hardwire kit if you want, you get even more features. Seriously, it's an awesome camera, a great price, link in below. All right, now that we are back and we've got a little bit of the bills paid, let's go over what I think the power plant's gonna be. I say think because I'm still not 100%. We're gonna talk through that in this episode, and I would absolutely love to see your comments and suggestions on maybe what we should go with. But we're gonna tear apart and see what we've got, at least for now. Now, sitting here is the, you know, stereotypical Mopar muscle car engine. It's a 440. What does that mean? It's 440 cubic inches of raw American muscle. That came from a motorhome, so, you know, ignore the fact that Dwayne's Toyota Camry makes more horsepower than it. Does not sound as cool. And I'm gonna show you how you can learn a little bit more about an engine before you ever open it up. Now, I will also say, I'm not Derek Berry, I'm not Freiberger, I'm not Steve Miniente. I don't have all the numbers in my head. I wrote them down and made a cheat sheet because that's a superpower I don't have, and I'm always impressed at their ability. Even Mark, you know, from Graveyard Cards, that's a casting number that tells you what year that water pump's from. So that way you know if it's right on a period build. What you do is find out on the engine you're working at where serial numbers are, and Mopars are really nice that they have them here. And I say that because a lot of GMs will hide them there. So if you're inside a car trying to figure out what engine you've got, you're gonna have problems. But as we can see, oh, focus, we have an 8T 440E. Now, what does that mean? Well, you're gonna need to pull up the chart. An 8T, that is your year of manufacture. When was this engine fully assembled? And according to the Mopar geniuses, an 8T is in 1978, which matches what information I also had. Now, 440, pretty obvious, 440 cubic inches. E, what does that mean? Well, that's where we get a little bit of bad news. E signifies it has a cast crank. That's not always bad news, but obviously a forged crank is always going to be a little bit stronger, better balanced, and would be ideal, but we don't have that. Now those other numbers, the 2 and the 6, I couldn't find a direct correlation. Now also with a Mopar, after I think it was 1976, on this rail right here on cars, you would have a serial number. But being a RV/industrial motor, we don't get that there. From everything I could find, there was no indication that it would have it. And then the next numbers you would look at would be casting numbers right there. Now, I can't tell if that's a 7 or a 2. That top one is when the engine was cast, so I'm going to assume a 2. It'll be October 29th, 1977. And then the numbers below it are just your forging numbers. A 400, 6630 indicates it was forged or cast between 1975 and 1979 and would be a raised block 440 cubic inch engine. That's how those numbers kind of help you figure things out. I'm sorry, there's a secondary number, 4410, which is a raised block 440. So whenever you're dealing with these old engines, they did a really amazing job giving you lots of information to figure out what you've got, what they are exactly down to the year. Speaking of just insane, I showed you the water pump. We could find out when that is. These intake manifolds have casting numbers. So I'd search that up, a 3830733. That's from a 75-76 4-barrel intake. It's not the actual original RV intake, which is an upgrade. That's a bonus. Obviously, we have those nice valve covers. So the last thing we need to find are cylinder heads. Remember when I said I pre-removed it? Now you do have to pull the valve covers on that. And again, we got a casting date. Let's see if I can get it to show up. January of 78. Leads credence to this being a 78 motor. And then right there is our casting numbers. Mopar guys, you know, we only need to see that 452. What that 452 does indicate is late model cylinder head, open chamber, meaning lower compression with a 208 intake and a 174 exhaust. Everything checks out. We bought what was supposed to be a good motorhome engine, and we have at least a motorhome engine with a car or slightly higher performance intake manifold on it. But that's where it ends. We're gonna get this thing torn apart. We're gonna get some cylinder heads off of it and take a little bit deeper look. All right, well, we can get started with the intake manifold. Now, something that's kind of unique-ish to Mopars is they have a valley plate gasket that's also the intake manifold gasket separate from the intake. So you can unbolt an intake and still keep your valley plate sealed. Also, any old Mopar guy will tell you, you always travel with a spare intake gasket because you can get a bad enough backfire sometimes that will blow those out and then you start leaking oil. So let's get going. Folks who caught on and saw the How to Buy a Used Engine episode knows this old girl, unfortunately, not turning very free. Oh, I think I see a little bit of a original Coca-Cola intake gasket there. Yeah, that's I mean, I won't say that I've not done it. The F100 I just put together, my gaskets didn't come with EGR block-offs, so I'm not going to say I didn't potentially use a Monster Energy can as a block-off. Although we all know whenever someone's like, oh, I'm not going to say I didn't do it, we did it. These are our spreaders. lift chain off. I really don't know what we're getting into here. Oh, what do we have on the bottom? Built on tradition. Kind of cardboard. I also see this is our cylinder that's full of water. This one got a little bit. Oh, looks like Timberland boots maybe? Is that built on tradition? It is what it is, you know. Normally you want to try to make sure all of this goes back where it came. If we keep and build this, no matter what, we're definitely going to be doing a camp. Also, your rockers live on a bar. Not 100% if I'm going to stick with stock rockers. They're pretty good, but changing your rockers are also a really good way to spice up performance. Let's go ahead and pull this head. Our goal is to get this thing fully apart so we can better assess what we're going to do. Throw it, block, or even Johnny. I'm not needing crazy horsepower. Kind of chasing a feeling. Definitely a sound. Oh, not too bad. Not too bad. Definitely ate some water. That's not something you want to see in your engine, in case you're wondering. Now, what do you think? Should we try and keep our lifters in order, not knowing what cam we got? Yeah, we'll just leave it for now. It doesn't hurt anything. So, you guys are building your favorite muscle car. What engine do you go with? Go the easy way, throw something modern in it. We'll have to pull one alternator bolt. There's a lot of torque, but handlebars. I do kind of love just how simple older it can be. Oh, tell you what, man. Well, I thought it was going to be the better one. It's not the bad one. And I get the lifters out. Alright, we're getting pretty good luck so far. And I'm an idiot for saying a thing. Because guess what? That's literally the next one. Now, on these older engines with a flat tappet, with the bottom, with no roller, nothing, perfectly flat. One, it's scary because right now you can't get good ones. So even if you buy name brands, it's 50-50 they're going to survive a braking process. It's just the state of lifters right now. But they do need to go back to where they came out of because all of that stuff wears in together. So with those heads off, you can see we've gotten water in. It's not as bad as the Ford. I don't feel catastrophic pitting anywhere. We do need to try to get her freed up. This one, though, is close to catastrophic pitting, which is a bummer. This was supposed to be a good runner. I don't know. That was a B. I just found a B in there. I'm gonna go ahead and get some stuff sprayed in there and soaking. Yeah, that's gonna be tricky, but I'm gonna vacuum this up and then we'll spray it. Oh yeah, there's a lip forming, but let's get that filled up with some cleaners and get all of them. Try to see if we can't save it. we've got some muriatic acid going now. As you can tell, it's working pretty hard on that cylinder. There's a lot of reactions, not a whole lot going on in here. We're gonna let it work a bit, and then we're gonna remove it, flip her over, and do the other 4 and see if we get any progress. But that was our more rusty of the sides. You see it just slowly kind of getting in and trying to do some work here. Oh wow, we're actually getting steam and smoke off of that one. I'm gonna go find a mask real quick. But at least our other stuck cylinder, now it's starting to give it a little reaction too. I thought this was kind of a fun shot here. So you see cylinder there, the front cylinder. Rusty, it's working. You kind of get pretty cold. And then boom. Suddenly, you can see that chemical reaction going to town. Well, all right, sleepyheads. I know time lapses aren't always the most fun, but Dwayne does usually pick a lot better music than I do. You know, thankfully he's getting back up to speed after vacation. And speaking of getting up to speed, let me tell you what we got done. Although I think you figured it out. We did get the pistons out of the block. They're all sitting down there. We had to get the aluminum rod out and, you know, the motivator 2.5 pounder. I mean, I could say 1,000, but everyone does that, and it's 2.5 pounds. So we did get all our holes emptied, and I thought this would be kind of a fun comparison. Not everyone is going to quite have a mental picture of what makes a big block a big block. One, generally, the block is larger. Not all the time. Sometimes you can have, surprisingly, a big cubic inch engine in a relatively small platform. Looking at you, the new Ford Godzilla, but at a 440, so Earl, 454 cubic inches, 7.4 liter. Powder keg, K3500, 7.4 liter, 454. This is a 440, so it's like a 7.2 and change. What exactly makes that difference, other than numbers? Bore and stroke, my friends. So this is our 440 rod and piston. This is our 302 rod and piston. So if you look, surprisingly, pin height, it is a little different, but not as different as you'd really think. Where you're getting all of your displacement is in the bore, the size of your hole and piston, which, as you can tell, that's a little different, and your stroke, your connecting rod length. Insert the memes, you and the guy she tells you not to worry about thing. I probably could grab an even smaller piston, but, you know, that's where you're gonna get your biggest change. Now, those of you wondering, yes, using the muriatic acid does create a lot of heat, and if you're not careful, we'll continue working on the block. So as soon as I got all of our pistons out, took it outside and just started running a lot of water on it. I actually got some baking soda, wiped down the cylinder walls, and rinsed it that way to deactivate the acid. That way, if there's any chance of saving this block, and I'm not just another $400 in the hole, we have it. So, speaking of that, if we get down in here, yes, this is looking really bad on camera, but it feels boreable. And what I mean by that is you can have rust pitting, like on our 302 from the F100, where that rust pitting is so bad that unless you put sleeves in it, it's not salvageable. This feels like a 20 or 30 over piston might actually get these cylinders back in good condition. Now, something else I did want to show you too, you hear about stuck piston rings. When we're reviving an engine, you get it turning over, you're still going to combat a piston ring that might be stuck to the piston, which means it's not going to seal correctly. You're going to have lots of blow by. Well, what exactly does that mean? Well, again, looking here, those rings, let's see, I don't have enough fingers. Don't point with the middle finger, come on. The piston rings here, those should move freely, but they are more or less a part of the piston. Now, a couple of these cylinders were good, so let me grab this one here. But you see how springy these piston rings are. And what that does is when they're in the bore, like we will not be able to install this piston right now because they're sprung out. That spring tension keeps those pushed against the cylinder wall, and that's what seals your compression. All of your explosions are happening on the top side of the surface, and it's the job of these rings to keep that gas on the top side and keeping it from getting down into your lubrication and oiling side where you build crankcase pressure. So all in all, the block might be salvageable, but we still got a little bit more teardown. What camshaft's in there? Is it worth running? So let's get set up, pull the front accessories. We're gonna get just the camshaft out of it. I wanna keep the crank inside just because it's less to store. Cylinder heads, they're gonna need a valve job. There is rust on the valves, and unfortunately, the hardened seats of this era, it's not a complete hardened seat. It's just a surface hardening, so the moment we cut it for new valves, we kind of lost the hardening. Back in the golden era, the 60s, 50s, 60s, you had leaded gasoline, and that lead acted as basically an insulator for the valves and valve seat. The way a valve stays cool is actually transferring the heat of the explosions into the cylinder head where the coolant can take it away. So valves will get really hot. That valve seat has a very critical role of taking the heat off the face of the valve. Well, when you had leaded gasoline, it kept it cool and kind of did a good job of insulating things and getting the heat out without burning stuff up. But when you switched over to non-leaded gasoline, seats would burn up very, very quickly. You'd actually have leaded additives and things like that. So the permanent fix, that little less cancer, is switching to a hardened seat, and that hard seat takes the abuse without the lead additives. So enough tech, let's get these accessories off of our big block, and then we're gonna have a serious talk, because no matter what direction I go from here, it's the wallet's not gonna like it, and I value your guys' input. It's kind of easy to forget where you were. I kind of forgot how bad the rust was. I mean, it was bad. You see that and kind of feel a little bit better about your progress, or I guess sometimes the lack of progress. I've been off it a little bit, and I've just been seeing it with the quarters and the roof and the whole trunk speaker deck lid rebuilt, and you know where we left it off. And you go back and the patches were terrible. The wheel wells were gone. There was no structure for rear glass to live in the back of it. And it looks like a good car now. And the floor pan's sitting in there, not 1,400 poorly done patches. And I don't know, it just, you know, that's why whether you're doing it for videos or doing it for you, pictures are important to help remind you that you actually have made progress. Another thing I'll say is never feel bad about whatever pace you're doing something at. Kind of like walking. Everyone takes a different amount of steps to cover a distance because their stride is different. So just because you gotta kick a few more steps out to get somewhere doesn't change the fact you still covered that distance. Hey, I could be very wrong, but I don't think these came stock with a gear drive. This has a button. This is generally reserved when you have a button like this, a roller button. This is generally reserved for roller lifters because you don't want the camshaft moving at all. But if you're gonna run that, you need to run a cast or hardened timing cover. Otherwise, it just dents your cover, and this cover it doesn't have any level of strength to resist any of that. Plus you can see where they just crudely hammered it out to clear the gear drive. I don't know if I'm gonna chalk this up to like a bonus, a good or not, you know? It's a surprise. Alrighty, so next up, distributor, and I should just be able to pull that out. Well, remember I said I had to look up the camshaft? Also because I don't have the David Freiberger superpower of just rattling off cam specs. That's a miracle. I wrote them down. So that cam is a 226 at 50 intake duration, 234 at 50 exhaust with a 268, 276 overall, 494 intake lift, 513 exhaust. Now that's with a stock rocker ratio. That's where you can get like a 1.7 to 1.8 and kind of amplify and cheat a cam a little bit. And it had 110 degree lobe separation, a pretty good car camshaft. So no matter what, if we're gonna do something, those heads are gonna need a little bit of work, potentially valve seats, definitely valve springs, but they're a decent cast head. We can polish those up a little bit. Ultimately though, we're not looking for an absolute pavement pounder. We're not looking for massive horsepower, something that's going to shake the car. We're looking for something that's fun, good torque, and is going to be as reliable as possible. I've got crazy loud, rowdy cars. The Satellite is never meant to be that. We're going to have lots of sound deadening. It's meant to be an amazing cruiser to eat up highway miles, cruise Route 66 start to finish, things like that. And that's where I'm now kind of running up against a bit of a wall. It's just, what do we do? Do we put the money into building this 440, or do I do the questionable thing, which we're trying not, yes, it's a questionable garage, but we're trying not to be too questionable. Do we flip it back and go Gen 3 Hemi in this? When I first bought it from Taylor, it had a Gen 3, a 5.7 non-Eagle. I would bare minimum put an Eagle 5.7 in it, just the cylinder heads are that much better. But as much as I want it calm, cool, and comfortable, I want a really good sound from the outside as well. Reminder of what a decent, mild 440 sounds like. Versus, you know, a Gen 3 Hemi. They don't necessarily sound bad, but is it the right fit? So yeah, granted, that's a 7-liter Gen 3 Hemi, but still, you know, you get the idea. Just, I feel like a 440 is the right way to go. It's just, you know, project creep. I wasn't planning on a lot of machine work, and it'd be really cool if a company that built, you know, had parts would maybe reach out. My email's down below. Want to work together? We'll build something cool. I do really want to build a 440, but tell me, what do you think? If this was your car, what would you do? I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get my mess cleaned up and put it behind me for a little bit. I know what we've got now. I know what I need to be looking for. We can get back on some sheet metal work. I've got a couple little quick in and out videos. We got parts coming for that actually are at the house now. Literally right now, they just got delivered. I got notices. We got parts for Johnny. So we're kind of going to be rotating a couple cars. We're going to get lots of updates. We're working on the Satellite, working on a Ferrari truck, working on old Johnny Rev, along with a couple other in and out cars. We're going to make a lot of progress. Everything's getting pushed forward. I know practical would be stick on one thing and shove it all the way to the finish line, but I want to push everything forward all at once. Keeps me interested, and hopefully keeps you guys interested. Just a little bit. If you made it this far, you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. It helps out a whole lot. Comment, good, bad, tell me I'm an idiot. I'm more than welcome to hear it. Half the time I am. Like, spending a lot of money on more just junk. One of these days, I'm gonna get something that isn't just gonna require all of the work. But that day is not today. I hope you guys have an amazing time. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you guys still have all your fingers after the 4th of July. I'm Jared, reminding you guys to always make questionable choices. And, you know, you're gonna make mistakes. Don't be afraid of it, because the only way you're gonna learn is, well, you make a mistake or two. We'll see you later.